Okay, and perhaps Darrin is going to join us later. The time is now 12:02 p.m. and I will call the meeting of the District of Columbia Board of Ethics and Government Accountability to order. I'm Norma Hutcheson, the BEGA Chairperson. Due to COVID-19, this meeting is being held virtually via WebEx. With me today, so far, board members Charles Nottingham, Melissa Smith, and Felice Tucker, and Felice Smith. And we're expecting Mr. Sobin. But together we constitute a quorum for this meeting. So if you would please take a look at the agenda that has been posted. There have been no changes as far as I know since it's been posted. And we'll need a motion to adopt the agenda.
I'll offer the motion to adopt the agenda for today's meeting.
And will someone second the motion?
I'll second that.
Okay, and that was Felice Smith.
Right.
Okay. It's been moved and seconded that we adopt the agenda for today's meeting. And if there are no comments or suggestions, all in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
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 Any opposition, please say nay.
Aye. Sorry, I was on mute.
Okay. 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 Any opposition, please indicate by saying nay. Okay. And before us today also are the minutes from the April 1st, 2021, the draft minutes, and will a member make a motion that we consider approval of those minutes from our last meeting?
I'll offer the motion to approve the minutes from our last meeting in April.
Okay. It's been moved and seconded, and is there a second? One second that motion to approve the April minutes. I will note that Mr. Sobin has joined us, so all five of us are here now. But I still need a second for the motion to approve the minutes from April.
I'll second that motion.
Thank you. So it's been moved and second that we approve the April 1st, 2021 board minutes. All in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
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 Okay. Any opposition, please say nay. Okay, hearing none, the board approves the minutes from the April 1st, 2021 meeting. Next, we'll hear a report from the Office of Open Government, OGE Director Niquelle Allen. Please provide a report. As I indicated before, Director Allen and all of us are appearing virtually. So Director Allen, please proceed.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Chairperson Hutcheson and members of the board. I am Niquelle Allen, Director of Open Government. I am pleased to present this report on the activities of the Office of Open Government. Since the last board meeting, the office has continued to fulfill its mission of ensuring that all persons receive full and complete information regarding the affairs of the district government and the actions of those who represent them. I'll start with Open Meetings Act and Freedom of Information Act rendered by the office. The first matter is an advisory opinion. On April 12, 2021, I issued an advisory opinion on the District of Columbia Public School Freedom of Information Act compliance matter number OOG-001.7.29.20 regarding DCPS's compliance with FOIA. My review of the matter led me to find the following. First, the District of Columbia Public Schools administrative policy and administrative and policy documents are public information subject to DC FOIA's proactive disclosure provisions. Two, DCPS had not fully complied with those provisions. A DC FOIA request is not needed to obtain these documents. DCPS has not made these documents publicly available as required by DC FOIA. And I found that DCPS was not in full compliance with the FOIA requirements to make the administrative and policy documents publicly available on its website, the internet, or by other electronic means. Additionally, DCPS violated DC FOIA by not providing the information without information of a DC FOIA request. I recommend that DCPS develop a plan that includes a realistic deadline to reach full compliance with DC FOIA. They should also inform the mayor and the council of its challenges regarding posting information on the internet and request additional funding to fully comply with DC FOIA. My staff will continue to monitor DCPS's progress in this matter. The second item is
What was going on there? Why were they unwilling or unable to do it?
It always comes down to funding with DCPS and other DC agencies. Staff is needed to digitize records. In this case, you may remember we had another matter earlier this year where the agency said that the record itself shouldn't be online because of the nature of it. We had to convince them that their action was a final action. That wasn't the case here. DCPS did agree that the document should be online. It was a resource issue. And we've seen that kind of across the board in the district when we're running into these problems with the reading room provision, that's what it's called on the federal side, that they're just not the resources and staff and funding to digitize records. And so we've just been across the board recommending that agencies add a line item to their budget for that purpose, for the digitization of records and putting them online. They've been required to do so for the past 20 years, and it's just not something that has gotten done.
That's a good suggestion, a separate budget line, because it'll require every agency to at least think about it, and then it'll make the mayor and the council, responsible for either funding it or not.
Yes, and long term, I mean, the district has much to gain by digitizing its records. Especially the environment that we're in now is kind of more so exposed to the public that there is a need for things to be online and to be accessed online when we can't get into offices. And when the law was written, as you remember, in 2001, it was right after 9/11. So at that time, we were thinking about what do we do if we can't get in office or if the records are destroyed? Well, if they're digital, then they're always available. So I think now, when we're in the pandemic and we're entering budget season, it's a good time for agencies to be making these types of requests.
Yep, I agree. Thank you.
You're welcome. The next matter is formal FOIA advice. OOG's legal staff and OGE's general counsel continue to provide BEGA's pending FOIA requests with a letter detailing the COVID-19 related changes to FOIA requirements and the impact of those changes on their FOIA requests. Currently, all requests received by BEGA's FOIA officer on or after January 16, 2021 will be processed under normal FOIA rules. However, if the request requires BEGA staff to search for records located in BEGA's physical office, our response to the request will not be due until 45 days after the public health emergency has concluded. The next is informal OMA and FOIA advice. So OOG has responded informally via email or telephone to requests for assistance as follows. We responded to 17 requests for OMA advice, 15 requests for FOIA advice, and the office responded to 6 requests for technical assistance with our website, open-dc.gov, since the last board meeting. The next item is training and outreach. First is the Office of the Attorney General evidence training. On April 9th, 2021, Attorney DeBerry attended Evidence, the Use of Documents to Impeach training presented by OAG. The training was used as an opportunity to gain an understanding of the steps a judge expects a litigator to take to set up and complete an impeachment that relies on a document. The second item is the Bowser Administration Cabinet meeting. On April 9th, 2021, I attended Mayor Bowser's cabinet meeting. The mayor provided updates on the District of Columbia government's reopening plan. The mayor has requested that independent agencies implement the reopening plan that she put forth, and I, along with Director Ford, are currently considering what BEGA's reopening plan will be. OMA training for local school advisory teams. On April 20th, 21, I, along with OOG's legal staff, attended the first of 3 trainings scheduled specifically for the local school advisory team. The second of such trainings was held on May 1st, and the third was held on May 4th. Attorney DeBerry conducted all 3 of the OMA trainings, and I, along with Chief Counsel Barton, attended as panelists and assisted with answering questions. The next item is OAG's The Rise of Hate and Its Deadly Consequences webinar. On April 14th, 2021, I, along with OOG's legal staff, attended a webinar which examined how attorney generals can advocate for and implement legal solutions to combat hate and prevent and better support victims, survivors, and their families. Panelists shared their experiences and personal stories of devastating loss, resilience, and advocacy in the wake of the deadly attacks and on the Capitol, and their recommendations for legislative changes to prevent hate crimes and to support those who have experienced its consequences. The Leadership Institute for Women of Color Attorneys Incorporated. I, along with Attorney DeBerry, attended the Leadership Institute for Women of Color Attorneys 16th Annual Leadership Conference on April 15th, 2021. It was called Left Out, Left Behind, a roadmap for the way forward. Women discussed experiences on responsibilities, work-life balance, promotions, pay equity, and a number of other issues impacting women of color in the legal profession. Another thought-provoking topic, implicit bias, do you know what you cannot see, was also discussed with helpful ways to address implicit bias. The Leadership Institute for Women of Color Attorneys, which was an extension of the last meeting that I mentioned, was held on April 29th, 2021. We also attended that. The webinar focused on interactive coaching and best practices for navigating careers for women of color. The ASAP National Training Conference Planning Committee is next. On May 4th, 2021, I recorded a webinar for the American Society of Access Professionals Training Conference that will occur on May 25th through May 27th, 2021. I instructed on innovations in the District of Columbia FOIA law, along with my co-presenter, Michael Morrissey, who is a representative from the FOIA advocacy organization, MuckRock. The next items are litigation and legislative updates. Litigation, OOG is monitoring FOIA-related cases in DC Superior Court. The agency is not a party to any of these lawsuits, and I'm providing the information for the board's awareness of litigation that may impact the operation and interpretation of DC FOIA law. The first matter is the TPM lawsuit update. This is an update on the FOIA case filed against the District of Columbia last year by Terrace, Plavick, and Millen. The FOIA lawsuit alleges that the District of Columbia government failed to produce and post online various budget-related documents as required by FOIA. The complaint alleges that the mayor failed to provide documents related to the Office of the State Superintendent of Education and District of Columbia Public Schools. The latest items that have taken place on April 16th, the plaintiff submitted a motion for summary judgment, and the submission was consistent with the schedule set forth in the March 16th order. On April 23rd, the DC Council submitted a statement of the Council of District of Columbia as amicus curiae in support of plaintiff's motion for summary judgment. The following deadlines remain, which we will update you on next month. On May 14th, the District of Columbia will file its cross motion for summary judgment, and on June 11th, the plaintiff may reply, and on June 30th, it's the deadline for the district to file any reply and report in support of its cross motion for summary judgment. The court has also scheduled a status hearing for July 23rd, 2021. The next item is the stop and frisk lawsuit. As we previously reported, on January 16th, 2021, the ACLU filed a lawsuit against the District of Columbia seeking records concerning stop and frisk by the Metropolitan Police Department. MPD is required to retain stop and frisk statistics pursuant to the Near Engagement Archives Results Act. The complaint seeks declaratory and injunctive relief to compel the district to provide the documents. On April 15th, 2021, the district submitted defendant's consent motion to stay litigation so the parties may discuss the possibility of settlement. On April 20th, the court granted the defense's motion, and order granting the consent motion to stay the proceeding was entered on the docket. The initial scheduling conference is scheduled for May 21st, but was canceled, and a status hearing is scheduled for July 23rd. The next item is legislation. The first is the Office of the Chief Medical Examiner Amendment Act of 2021. On May 3rd, Councilmember Charles Allen convened a public hearing on Bill 24-0148. The purpose of this bill is to amend the establishment of the Office of the Chief Medical Examiner Act of 2000 to authorize OCME to provide ancillary services and to establish the Office of the Chief Medical Examiner Fund to charge a fee for those services. The Privacy Act of 2021 is the most significant one that was discussed, and that's Bill 24-0203. And the purpose of this bill is to amend the Chief Medical Examiner Act of 2000 and the Freedom of Information Act of 1976 to prevent confidentiality of medical examiner case records. Specifically, this bill will help protect the privacy of families who suffer the loss of a loved one while balancing the public interest in certain chief medical examiner records. The bill will clarify which files are confidential, consistent with the privacy protections provided for death certificates and medical records. A judicial process is included for possible third-party access in the unusual case where the public interest outweighs a family's right to privacy. Our office will continue to follow this legislation. So this is significant in the time that we're in due to the January 6th event. On the FOIA side, the chief medical examiner, of course, has received FOIA requests for their records pertaining to individuals who became deceased as a result of the event. So the law needed to be clarified with respect to these records and the public interest and the need to see them. So that's why this has come forth at this time. Just wanted to give you background. And the next matter is HB 2004, Virginia Freedom of Information Act, Law Enforcement Criminal Incident Information Criminal Files. On June 1st, 2021, a new published records law will take effect in Virginia. The state's public records law was changed to allow Virginians to access closed investigative files. This law will compel the police to release records of investigations that are no longer ongoing. The new law could begin to end state law enforcement agencies' longstanding practice of shielding files from current incident reports or files that have been closed for decades. It's significant to us. We monitor what's going on in our sister jurisdiction. So this is an extraordinary step in Virginia for law enforcement records. So we will also continue to monitor the developments in Virginia. Administrative matters.
Ms. Allen, tonight, sorry to interrupt. This is
Yes.
Chip Nottingham. I just wanted to go back to the last piece of legislation you were referencing regarding FOIA and the DC Medical Examiner's Office. And you mentioned the horrible events of January 6th, which I certainly condemned at the time and continue to condemn as an outrage, the invasion of my former workplace at the U.S. Capitol, where a lot of friends and former colleagues continue to work. But you help me understand the proposed legislation. Is it still proposed, or is it passed? And is it designed to add more of a shielding or a protection to the medical examiner's office to allow them to not share details of certain types of death or investigations they do or cause of death? I guess, could you just maybe go back to the status of that and what the purpose of the legislation is? Because I know
Sure.
many of us were troubled, very troubled, when we read in the New York Times and other very normally respected news outlets that one of the officers, the Capitol Police officers, I believe his name is Brian Sicknick, was literally pummeled to death by a fire extinguisher. Was the news report in the days after January 6th, which I can't imagine a more horrible way to for someone to meet their fate. But then six or more weeks later, in a case probably of the most national interest in recent DC history, at the medical examiner's office, an actual report surfaced indicating that the poor officer did not have any bruises or contusions or cuts or wounds, and he died of some, either from the stress days later, that he died, quote unquote, of natural causes, and obviously we'll never know. I mean, I'm going to assume he died in part because of the trauma of what he witnessed on the 6th, but it was very troubling that a DC office got embroiled in such a I'll kindly say a miscommunication, because being pummeled to death by a fire extinguisher is a lot different than not being. And I guess so. I'm just trying to understand what the purpose of this. I mean, I would, in a case of that international national significance, I would kind of want more information out sooner, because people were literally,
Right.
Getting arrested and counter protests and the outrage, and people. I mean, my stress level was really high thinking about that poor officer being supposedly. So yeah, I guess I'll slow down. Let you maybe explain what the purpose of this legislation is, and why it is or isn't a good thing to release more rather than less information when there's a police involved, for example, death.
Right. Sure. So it's pending, and it actually will not affect the records from the January that are resulting from the January 6th event. It prompted the government to look at its Medical Records Act, which now is very open, but it doesn't. So the thought is it doesn't protect the family members, because there's no privacy. Once you're deceased, as far as FOIA goes, there's no privacy interest. So you cannot withhold a record under FOIA due to privacy when the person is deceased. Now there is a thought, or there's a body of jurisprudence that says that, again, the family may have some privacy interest. But it's not clear, and it hasn't been adopted here in the District of Columbia. So this bill is out to examine that in the District of Columbia. So right now, the medical records of a decedent, let me back up. I shouldn't call it medical records. So they're not treated as medical records like under HIPAA or privacy. So it's called the Chief Medical Examiner. So I immediately thought, well, if it's a record that's related to my physical body, whether I'm present or not, from just my layperson's perspective, I would assume that's a medical record. But right now in the district, it's not considered a medical record per se that would kind of attach to my general medical records from my medical history as a living person. So once you're deceased and there's an autopsy and things like that, it's not here considered to be a medical record that HIPAA or other protections could attach to. So what the council is doing now with this bill is examining what that should look like, and is that prudent? The discussions are also, of course, are going around to, like, when it's a situation like that with Officer Sicknick, there's a public interest in that medical record. So how should that be weighed if we look to create medical records as the chief medical examiner's records and reports? If we make those medical records, how does that impact the public interest? So that's where our interest in FOIA comes in. So we're waiting to see. We did comment to the mayor's office about our thoughts about it, and just had a discussion with the medical examiner's office just about FOIA and privacy. So we will continue to monitor and weigh in as appropriate to see the outcome of this legislation. I personally can see it both ways. I think it is prudent to make it a medical record. However, as far as FOIA goes, the public interest needs to be taken into effect when that record is something that the public would have a great interest in.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate the explanation.
You're welcome. All right, the last item on our administrative matters. First, our attorney advisor and trial attorney vacancies. We are pleased to note that we will be welcoming 2 new attorneys on board on May 24th, and we look forward to introducing them to you all at the June board meeting. Lastly, the FY22 budget. The Office of Open Government is working with the Office of Government Ethics on additional budget enhancement requests. These requests are needed to improve the operations of BEGA and our ability to perform our mission. We're looking for additional funds for office administration and training platforms. And as you all may recall, we have already requested office space, and I have requested a paralegal position for the Office of Open Government. So this concludes the Office of Open Government's May 6, 2021 report. Thank you for your time. If you have any additional questions, I'll be happy to answer them now.
Thank you, Ms. Allen. Are there any other questions for Ms. Allen? Okay, hearing none.
Ms. Allen, just one quickly. I'm sure it's in your notes, but what's the bill number for that bill I was just asking about, the medical examiner's FOIA bill? Is there I wanted to look
it's
it up.
Bill number 24-0203, and the other companion bill is 24-0148. And I'm happy to send those to you. I can put that in
That'd be
Dropbox.
great. If you don't mind, thanks.
I'll make sure to do that. Oh, no problem. I'll do that right after the conclusion of the meeting.
Thanks.
You're welcome.
Okay, thank you. Next, also via WebEx, we'll hear from the Director of Office of Government Ethics, Ms. Ford.
Good afternoon. How are you today? My name is Rochelle Ford. Okay. Hi, my name is Rochelle Ford, and I am the Director of the Office of Government Ethics. And I am pleased today to present this report on the activities of OGE. So first, I'll provide an update on the status of our operations with respect to our investigative activities. The information reported today regarding our cases will not reflect any status changes that may occur as a result of any actions taken by the board during today's meeting. We currently have 61 matters that are open and 1 matter that is open and in the negotiation stage, for a total of 62 matters. We currently have 0 matters that we are still deciding as undocketed. We have 27 matters that are closed pending collection, and 3 matters that are stayed pending OAG False Claims Act cases, and 9 matters stayed for pending OIG investigation, and 1 matter stayed pending U.S. District Court case action, for a total of 40 cases that are stayed or closed pending collection. There are still 24 regulatory matters that are closed pending collection, but our collections team, which I talked about last month, it has prioritized identifying, moving forward, and pursuing collection on these particular outstanding matters. And these are older either FDS fines or older lobbying fees that have not been collected. Let's see, in comparison, looking across time, we currently have 62 investigations that are open. And last month we had 55 investigations open, and before that, that should read March, pardon me, we had 53 investigations open. We've had 12 cases stayed throughout this time period. The number of open matters include 10 preliminary investigations and 1 formal matter that have been open since the board last met. Next, an update on our training and outreach and educational activities. During the month of May, OGE attorneys and investigators attended the Society for Corporate Ethics and Compliance's 2-day virtual workshop on the essentials of compliance investigations and techniques. The training featured all aspects of planning investigations, conducting them, documenting your investigations, as well as developing policies and procedures for effective investigations and shared best practices. OG attorneys attended multi-day conferences sponsored by the Leadership Institute of Women of Color, otherwise known as LEOCOA. Director Allen has already described the event, as well as the Women in Law and Leadership Summit. Both conferences, as Director Allen described, featured discussions on professional development and trending legal issues, and offered opportunity to network and engage with other professionals. Investigator Bradley is currently enrolled in the Certified Ethics Associate course, which is developed by the Management Strategy Institute. This course is designed to provide a solid understanding of the ethical standards required across today's business and government environments. And he is hoping to work to acquire certification in ethics to enhance his ability to better investigate matters. So I think that's a great idea. As always, Baker's auditor has been active. He has taken 2 courses through DCHR related to project management and Six Sigma. Also a course on finding the quality in your data, and the ethics for DC employees course. Trainings conducted by staff. Since our last board meeting, OGE attorneys conducted 4 total ethics trainings, including our regular monthly training, an ethics training for the Health Benefits Exchange, and trainings for ANCs that we did along with the Office of the Attorney General, and trainings for the board members of the University of the District of Columbia. We were not able to report last month on the number of employees who took the online training. And so I can tell you that last month, or rather during March, we had 185 employees take the online ethics training. And during the month of April, we had 496 employees take the ethics training. So one of the reasons why we have to wait for the results is that they are in PeopleSoft, and we don't have full access rights to PeopleSoft, which will feed into a discussion we'll have later about our plans to acquire a learning management system in our efforts thus far. We did not hold a virtual brown bag ethics forum this month, given some other matters that we focused on in the office, but look forward to resuming them soon. Next, advisory opinions and guidance. We responded to approximately 51 requests for ethics guidance, which is 5 more than the 46 that we reported at the April meeting. This number does not include the responses that we have provided related to questions regarding the lobbyist and FDS e-filing systems. And this is the busiest time for that, of course. So that's most of the staff is focused on in terms of responding to requests from stakeholders. And OGE has not issued any advisory opinions since the last meeting. Next, the update regarding the Pro Bono Clarification Amendment Act of 2021. Councilmember Allen intends to introduce this bill as an amendment to Section 223 of the Ethics Act by adding a new subsection which would allow employees to represent persons of limited income and community and also community-based agencies. The amendment allows for pro bono representation in affiliation with a nonprofit, provided that the matter does not involve a claim against the district, a criminal proceeding, the district does not have a direct and substantial interest in the matter, and the employee has not personally and substantially participated in the matter and will not, and that the matter does not represent any federal or district ethics laws or rules of professional conduct. In 2019, as you may recall, there were discussions to amend the DPM section 1807, subsection H, that's the rule that says that you can't represent third parties back before the district government to allow pro bono engagements by UDC law professors who were engaged in clinical work and other district employees, but the amendment was never introduced. The council code and the DPM currently appear to prohibit engagements in matters against the district or matters in which the district has a substantial interest. The DPM provides an exception for employees who are appearing with other employees in personnel matters, and it allows them to represent members of their family or an estate if they, as long as it doesn't relate to their official duties. So OG does not oppose the amendment. We have been involved in the drafting process and we're invited over along with OAG attorneys and council staff. And our main concern is that we want to ensure that pro bono has a clearer definition and not just relates to, you know, I guess a community-based organization could mean lots of different things. And so we provided some examples of policies at the federal level that provide a clearer definition. And then also talked about the importance of allowing for or requiring agency approval. And so there's an issue now, I think, in deciding whether or not all pro bono service must be performed through an agency vetted and approved program, or would the potential amendment allow an individual to engage in their own pro bono activity or in their own outside volunteer capacities, as long as it met the criteria for pro bono and was approved. And so that's a question I think that they want to think about in advance, given that you never know what interest the district might have in the future, or even how just any particular matter might appear given its nature. So it's still in the draft process, and we're still having a robust discussion.
Director, can I ask a question about it?
Sure.
I noticed in the language that one of the prohibitions was whether or not the district has a direct and substantial interest in the matter. Is there any concern on our part that that should be direct or substantial, or are we okay with it being both direct and substantial? Because I know that's come up before.
Sorry, my computer was doing things there. It's another day of the tech revolt. I apologize. So we have not had detailed discussions about that, but I am aware from reading previous discussions about this. Should it be direct or and so I know the issue is discussed a little bit at the federal level in the regulations, which are not controlling but are informative when you're looking at potential conflicts and recusals and looking at matters of impartiality. And so then it comes up there as a matter as well. So we'll also maybe introduce some language. So since this point is well taken, we can introduce that into the conversation as well.
And has there been a hearing on the bill yet?
No, it's just we're at the very preliminary stages. So we've just had a meeting, and either GC Raj or attorney advisor Cooks, I can't recall the name of the other participants, but we're working with some outside, some private groups that are interested in pro bono work as well. And so we're.
Oh, I'm well aware.
Okay.
My
Okay.
colleague-
Oh, yes, of course you could be. Yeah. So we are, yes. And so this is still at the conversation stage, and people are bringing different levels of expertise, you know, depending on their involvement in, you know, groups like the ABA versus, you know, professional experience or experience at, you know, applying the rules.
And just for the record, the DC Bar's Pro Bono Center has a very substantial interest in seeing this bill or something similar that loosens up the ability of DC government attorneys to engage in pro bono activities. They have a very real interest in it, but the DC Bar's Pro Bono Center is a separate institution from the DC Bar. And so I am not connected to the DC Bar Pro Bono Center, which is why I feel okay to comment on this.
Understood. Thank you. Thank you for explaining that. Yes, I would say just to offer as well, OGE's perspective as well. As I said, we do support the amendment and believe that it is in the best interest of the public, as well as in the interest of good government, to allow these opportunities, because there are matters that are of the public interest that you know we could engage in as well. So we are fully supportive of this as well. So.
Good.
Any other questions? All right, thank you. Let's see. All right, next, OGE administrative matters. First, regrettably, I am informing you all that OGE attorney Sonia King has resigned from her position as an attorney advisor at OGE, and will be leaving our agency. Her last day is tomorrow. And I would like to thank her for her excellent work, professionalism, zeal, and collegiality. Next, with respect to attorney advisor vacancies, given that we have a recently announced departure, OGE interviewed candidates for the vacant attorney advisor position that was funded last year in the budget, and as well as now the recently vacated attorney advisor position. And we are planning to extend offers by early next week. So we are looking forward to following in OOG's footsteps and having staff join in the near term. Next, my understanding is that the board will also be conducting interviews for the senior attorney advisor position in the near term as well. So the goal is to get the agency fully staffed by the end of the next quarter, hopefully. So I think we're well on our way. Next, with respect to reporting, I'm going to give a longer comment and give some more context. I'm aware that there's a public comment, and I've been in contact with the public commenter since, frankly, since I've been working on the issue. And so the issue is that we are behind in producing quarterly reports, although we produce monthly case reports quite easily. And we had some issues with being able to get reliably consistent reports, given my knowledge and our knowledge of cases that were open. And the issue stemmed from having cases that were were imported over from the old system, and the way they were coded in different ways, not matching up with new cases. And so we were getting weird, bizarre results in the reports. And so we have, sort of been troubleshooting that for a while. So we are still working on that. I have had several discussions with our vendor and seeking their help to resolve the problem. They've been working on it, adding buttons, taking things away, trying to figure out, how to sync up the places where we're having the glitches at, so we can capture every case we know should be there. And then also our investigations team, and looking at the complaint intake process that the former director instituted, and talking about developing more narrative discussions for our website, talked about ways to work to standardize the data that's in our case management system. We have a great case management system. It has a very powerful capacity to process a lot of data, but that also means that's a lot of inputs. And so we have begun to streamline and focus inputs and think about the way the system has been used, which leads to the next piece. So the team has been, as I said, talking about ways to automate pulling the report, so we don't have this situation going forward, because it's harder to pull an historical report than it is a current report. Historical reports are tedious because there are lots of errors because they don't sync up, and they're also missing data, which this calls the delay. The team worked to standardize data. That part's been great. And we're at the place now where I think we can push a button and generate a report in real time going forward. And so, we're trying to sync that up with the ability to provide historical snapshots, which are what the quarterly reports provide across time. more clearly given all the data that we have. And we also discovered weirdly that we didn't realize this because of the way we code our system before. As you recall, we had changed the docketing system in September of 2020 to make sure that matters that used to be treated as undocketed, were all input into the system. And so at that time, there was a huge influx of sort of new cases. So those cases came in, but their dates were, of course, not completely accurate because they became new in October, but could have originated in 2017 or 2015 or what as it is. And so as the team worked through those cases, which as I'm proud to say, and as you know, they there was new information put in, and some of those cases may have been closed, pending or stayed, and there were changes or payments made or collected. But any updates to those older cases would trigger a change in its originating dates, which would throw all the data off. So we've learned that now. So that's what the glitch is. So we figured it out. So we will be able to produce the report because as I think, is fully reasonable, it should be automated and able to be done at the push of a button. We've also changed agency staffing plans to have a case management assistant who will attend regular team meetings and ensure that the updates that the team provides anyway normally are standardized across our reporting fields. So that's what I wanted to provide. Any questions about this topic? Okay. Next was budget. The agency's budget hearing is set for June 16th of 2021. GC Raj, Attorney Cooks, and I have been working with Director Allen and her team to develop and submit additional budget enhancements. And the date to submit those enhancements has been extended because the mayor has pushed back the time that she's going to submit her budget in light of changes at the federal level. So OGE will intend to seek additional enhancements to the ones we previously asked for, which was simply more space, which, as you all know, is of course our key priority. And identifying these enhancements and figuring out what is a priority, we focused on our strategic plan and thinking about improving and modernizing agency functionality. And so the first thing which we've been working on is procuring the learning management system. And we plan to hopefully procure that with current fiscal year funds. But in doing our research, we realized that in order to have a district-wide, flexible, effective, secure learning management system that can support the training efforts potentially of 35,000 plus employees, we're going to have ongoing maintenance and licensing fees, and also fees possibly related to storage, secure storage and service. And so we're going to seek a funding enhancement for those anticipating ongoing cost. Next, with respect to operational needs, after reviewing our agency administrative and personnel functionality. Hello?
Yeah, I would be move on to the off the LMS. I can tell you that we just at the DC Bar implemented a new learning management system, and you're right, it's not cheap and it's ongoing. I think you're right to be asking for an enhancement on this because it's going to be, and first of all, it's critically important to have it, and two, it's it's not cheap. So
Yes, thank you very much. I for acknowledging the time. Ashley and I have listened to a lot of presentations and have talked to a lot of agencies and other entities, including the DC Bar, about their efforts to procure a learning management system. We learned that there are about 800 or so companies, and they all apparently merge or spread or break apart every 2 to 3 months. It's a
moving target.
Yeah, it's a moving target. And so it really gave us a chance, though, to identify with a lot of specificity what we're going to need for our system to make it customizable for the district's needs. And so
I will say this, though. We have certain requirements that and I should say we at the DC Bar have different requirements than we at BEGA, because we need to, at the DC Bar, give out CLE credit. We need different levels of authentication for that purpose. If we didn't have those requirements, and we also have to sell them. So we need the financial component and a catalog system, and we've gotten all that with our current LMS system. But if we didn't have all those requirements, we were finding that simpler is actually better. And so things like a YouTube channel would have addressed a lot of our just the pure training needs. And that's available, of course, for minimal or for free, having a dedicated or enhanced YouTube channel. So you might want to think about that also, when you list your requirements, what it is you're actually going to use, because you're going to be paying a lot for it. And if you don't need it, don't buy it.
Oh yeah, it's definitely sold to you piecemeal, as you mentioned, and we do have a very excellent YouTube channel. And one thing that I liked about it is that I sent the interns to go to our YouTube channel to watch presentations from Ethics Week, and that gave them a great chance to really understand what we do. So it'll be a tool as we bring in new employees. Going to the theme of what I'll talk about next, we've been looking at a lot of our internal administrative processes. And so we're working on developing a more explicit onboarding process. And so even, one of the things you have an obligation to do when you bring in new employees is make sure that they have an opportunity to fully learn about the agency's mission, so that they can fully support it. And so those materials are on our YouTube channel. So for people who like to do more than just read manuals and case files, so it is a good place. So shout out to Ashley, who manages that. And I will say, even as the director, I went there and I was like, wow, this is all here. So you get so busy, you don't realize, so it is very helpful in that way. So the next thing, as I was saying, we were looking at going with this theme and thinking a lot, as we all should be across the district, and as the district leadership has encouraged us to do, is to think about how to meet the changing needs of our of the public and our workforce, given that many of us are working in the way that lots of entities do business will be changing. And also, of course, we're thinking about our efforts to improve our transparency, and our commitment is 100%, but our availability is much thinner. And so we've been thinking about ways to really augment and support and build up that aspect of the agency so that, personnel with expertise in substantive matters like ethics and open government and FOIA can really use that effort to do those things. And we can have someone to take the lead, a clearer lead. And so we're going to seek to enhance our operations and an effort to modernize things, as I said, to meet the changing needs of the district. And we're also going to take a suggestion from Councilmember Charles Allen from prior performance hearings, and seek funding for a position that will essentially function as a chief of staff. And that person would oversee administrative efforts, serve as the point person and expert on budget, performance, strategic planning, and procurement, and supervise current administrative support functions and human resource functions. So we really also, and most importantly, provide that experience, that the communications expertise that the agency would like to develop in order to improve our transparency, improve our outreach. So we'd like to dedicate a professional to that because we are all very committed to it, and we definitely have the substantive knowledge to communicate, but the strategizing and ability to put that effort forward, we believe that the office would be enhanced with someone in that role. And then also, after consulting with DCHR and understanding that they have been evaluating how they tier their agencies and what their relationships are, and which agencies need an MOU and which services will be provided. We are going to need to seek an enhancement to fund a dedicated full-time human resources professional position to best assist the agency with developing a strategic plan to modernize and standardize our recruiting and staffing efforts, the way we handle our performance and feedback, our ability to retain our employees and provide professional development. And so BEGA has specialized and unique personnel needs, given that we have a broad and multifaceted mission. And so we also have had persistent vacancies by OG in various positions since 2017. And being consistently overstaffed has had an impact on overall agency efficiency, performance, and morale. So we think that it's time to try to move our agency into the 21st, or is that 21st century? Board member Sobin grew the agency person by person. And so we think it's time for us to now add a little bit more support. So any questions?
Yes, the chief of staff position is separate and different from the enhanced HR professional you're looking for, right?
Yes, that would be different. Yes, because we need someone with expertise and being able to write specialized positions and understand what type of background and experience is essential to bring someone in to come and assist with our staff. We're a very lean agency, which is great in lots of ways for communication and being able to, kind of work in sync, because we're all literally kind of just a holler away, even in the world of Zoom. But we believe we need someone to be able to spot that kind of talent with a little more accuracy in the recruiting process, because I think that we've had to post positions 2 or 3 times to get, sort of to try to attract more applicants. And I think part of that is a recruiting strategy issue. And so we think a professional will help us to be more efficient in doing that in the future. So.
Okay.
All right, and then the last aspect of enhancements, we'll also be seeking an enhancement to fund the development of a payment portal or link. I didn't know this would be so complicated. I feel like people pay the government all the time, or I try to if I need to. And what we'd like to do is allow people to just use the internet to pay us. It is a remote world. Some people don't have checks, mail languishes. We have our auditor currently working on a project to look at or to figure out the cause for a relatively significant discrepancy in the amount of money that has actually gotten into our official accounts and the amount that has been sent in. And there's a pretty lengthy gap. There always was a little bit of a gap, but now that we're remote, and once that payment gets in and how long it takes to get into their system. So we can see it's been sent out, but we don't know what's happening in the middle. And so we are at a minimum trying to seek direct electronic payment to provide that option to people, because it will encourage compliance, we think. And also, it cuts down on the ability for fraud or for theft or for inefficiency or for lost mail, and allows us to better track what we receive. And so we're just going to seek funding to enhance this upgrade to our capacity, and also to make some changes to how we classify our staff and staff increases, given that we're going to be bringing on more operational staff. Okay, and then lastly, just picking up on what Director Allen mentioned regarding return to work and building issues, I do respond to the mayor's daily COVID report request. And now we do them, I guess, twice a week, but for most of the pandemic, we did them daily, as well as had meetings. And so usually I respond with no issues, but given that the mayor has established a goal to gradually return to work with voluntary returns and have people back in the office full time by mid-July, I made sure to point out to the mayor and to DGS that BEGA still has a significant space constraint issue. The 2018 space study and our administrative officer met with DGS last year and reconfirmed that the space was already almost 50, or actually over 50% too small for the staff, given that it's the same place the agency has been since it began with 1 or 2 or 3 people. And now the agency has grown. We have already added in 2 new attorney positions, 3. And so we are running out of places to sit together. And so Director Allen and I have a meeting scheduled with DGS for today, and I think maybe even one for tomorrow. And so that may have some impact on our enhancement, but I am letting them know that our plan at the time is to continue to remain remote and have employees still go into the office voluntarily on an ad hoc basis or even regular basis with pre-approval. Some employees do go in once a week or twice a week, and they go in regularly with pre-approval. So next, FGS and lobbyist matters. First, with respect to the lobbying system and activity, in April of this year, we received 419 Q1 activity reports. And thus far this fiscal year, there have been 7 new reports, or 7 renewals and 6 terminations. The team continues to work on the website. All of our teams, the FGS team, the lobbying team, and there's a website team, are looking at our individual portions of the website and thinking of ways to improve the information how it's presented, and looking at benchmark websites or sources for information. And so the team identified and removed old links or information that was no longer useful or cluttering the page, and updated all the remaining links. And they intend to provide some more features and buttons, and I know some shorter training videos as well. So that's their plan. Financial disclosure on April 15th, the FDS team sent out notices to 3,660 employees, board members, commissioners, and former employees designated as public financial disclosure statement filers. These notices, as I said, were an email, and then we sent physical letters on April 24th due to printing delays with the vendor. Of the email notices, we got about 250 bounce backs and are working on fixing those or following up on those. As a result of the notice, we received, or rather there were 1,149 financial disclosure statements filed by April 30th of 2021. This is a 30% increase in filing completion over the comparable time frame for the previous year. So that's pretty significant. And in addition, support tickets over that same comparable period are down 60%, which is a substantial improvement, given that that was our key issue. So most of the tickets are email password. People can't retrieve their, or rather reset their password. So they're relatively straightforward, but they're just user issues, not technical issues. So it does appear that the solutions developed by our vendor, Abstract Evolutions, that were implemented by Octo in late 2020 are working as intended. So that's the good news. So we are pleased with the way things are rolling along. Next, with respect to FDS, the confidential filer pilot program. As we have mentioned, OGE is developing a pilot program for electronic confidential financial disclosure filing in an effort to modernize, standardize, and automate the financial disclosure process for both public and confidential filers across the district. This makes it easier. People last year had issues where their records were in their desk, or they couldn't access, they were having login issues or technical issues. And so that had some impact on their ability to file, as we have seen in just now in analyzing the trends. And we think that providing a uniform electronic option would be ideal. So through April 30th, 52 of the 198, beta testers in the in the pilot program, including 3 OG personnel, have filed successfully and remain securely confidential. Our goal is to allow for both confidential and public filers to use the same e-filing system district-wide, given that we have the same questions. We think this will allow agency ethics counselors to more easily maintain ethics-related records, analyze agency compliance, and more easily access information to address possible conflicts of interest within their own agencies. So, so far, it appears to be working wonderfully. Considering the number of confidential filers overall, though, we will continue to work with Octo to determine the funding needed to best ensure that district agency ethics counselors and agency officials can have secure administrative access to only their own agency filer information. And so that's what we'll be working on in terms of thinking about how to build out the program. So thank you. This concludes the report about the activities of the Office of Government Ethics.
Okay, are there any other questions for Ms. Ford before we move on?
I don't have any questions, but I had 2 comments. One, I wanted to thank you particularly for the update about the system. That's great news that we already have increased compliance, and we're pretty much still at the beginning, or at least halfway through the process. I particularly like the language I noticed this year that said, "You are the intended recipient of this notice," because I'm not sure if that was new or if it was just new to me, but it's very catchy, and hopefully that will work moving forward.
I want to commend Attorney Asia Stewart Mitchell, who is out of the office today, but we got a lot of good, solid feedback about the form, and we've received some more feed forward as the chair can confirm as well, to try to deal with people's ability to fully respond to the form. And in the notice, Asia was, when I read it, I felt like I was being conscripted, but I didn't. But a concern is that people would get it and it would come as a blind copy. And they thought, well, they just received it in error. Right. And so that's fair. And so we thought that's a pretty easy fix. So I just want to commend her for that. So I'll give her that feedback. Thank you.
And the other thing is about a different member of your staff. I wanted to thank Miss King for her service and tell her that we will miss her and wish her the very best of luck in her future endeavors.
We will as well.
Thank you, Sonia, for your work with us. We appreciate it. Any other comments or questions from Ms. Ford before we move to the next agenda item? Okay. The next is public comments. The public was invited to submit comments in writing by 11 o'clock today. I understand that we do have one that relates to the quarterly reports that you, Ms. Ford, just reported on. And that comment will be published with meeting minutes for this month. Okay. So the next item is the executive session, the closed session. The next item is the closed session to discuss ongoing confidential investigations pursuant to DC Official Code Section 2-575B14, to consult with an attorney to obtain legal advice and to preserve the attorney-client privilege between an attorney and a public body pursuant to DC Official Code Section 2-575B4A. Discuss personnel matters, including the appointment, employment, assignment, promotion, performance, evaluation, compensation, discipline, demotion, removal or resignation of government appointees, employees, or officials pursuant to DC Official Code Section 2-575B10. To deliberate on a decision in which the Ethics Board will exercise quasi-judicial functions pursuant to DC Official Code Section 2-575B13, and to discuss contract negotiation strategies pursuant to DC Official Code Section 2-575B2. And may I have a motion to enter into executive session?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. It's been moved and second that the board move into executive session. All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any
Aye.
opposition? Say nay. Sounds like the motion passes. So board members, please log out of this session and log into the WebEx for the executive session. And once that session begins, we will return, once that session ends, we will return to this WebEx to report out on any matters decided, finish any other business, and adjourn the meeting. So let's go into the executive session. Thank you.
Board Member Tucker. Oh, sorry.
Okay. Hello, everyone. The time is now 2:49 p.m. and we have the following matters to report out. First, the board approved a negotiated settlement in the matter 20-0047P in Ray J. Ollie, J. Jolly, Jolly. We also voted to appoint Ashley Cooks as the acting director of government ethics, as Ms. Ford has resigned and accepted another position. Her last day will be on the 14th, and Ms. Cooks, who I see has joined us, will join us or continue with us as acting director of government ethics as of May 9th. Congratulations, Ms. Cooks. Farewell and all the best, Ms. Ford, and we'll miss you. And with that, that's the end of our meeting. We will meet by WebEx on June 3rd at noon. And also, I'd like to again wish Ms. Sonia all the best, Sonia King.
Thank you so much.
Okay.
Thank you.
We'll be in touch. Okay.
Congratulations, Ashley. Thank you all. Have a good afternoon. Bye-bye.
Thank you, everybody. Take care.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Congratulations, Ashley.
Thanks, Darrin.
Best wishes.
Congratulations, Ashley.
Whatever.
Ron, change that tone.
I'm just gonna say congrats. We'll leave it at that. Look forward to it. Be good.
Thank you.
You'll do great. You'll do great. I know it.